They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwamerz podcast.
Welcome into the program, everybody. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwamerz podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend it with us. We promise we will try to make it worth your while, and I think we're going to succeed this week as well. Hopefully you're following along on the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcast, on Spotify, or on YouTube. You can follow on social media, Facebook and Instagram at the Benchwamerz Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or go to our homepage, thebenchwarmers.com. Benchwarmers with a Z for marketing purposes. We have a lot of fun, interesting articles going up every week on the website. We're going to touch on one of those in a little bit. Coming up even later, we have our breakfast cereal bracket. It's the Final Four. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. We're going to be going through your votes and our votes and seeing who's going to move on to the championship for our breakfast cereal brackets. Also some NBA stuff coming up in a little bit. We do have to talk this week in sports, like we start off every show. But first, Jose, I'm going to go off a little off script for a second to start the show. This is our 50th week, and this is officially our 1-year anniversary. So I just wanted to say happy anniversary to us.
Happy anniversary to you too. My 11-year wedding anniversary is coming up in about a month, and it's going to be tough.
Kind of important, but
yeah. It's just I don't know. 1 year. I don't know. So no,
one full year. Yeah. So this is and
we picked a funny year to start because there was just not any sports for the first 2 to 3 months of the show.
Yep.
And
I couldn't think of a better way to start, honestly, because we started off. It can't get harder than having no sports to do a sports show. So I think that we set up ourselves nicely. We conquered the adversity and we made it through. And I think this is officially this is going to be the end of season 1. So in TV world now, it's all about seasons. So I think this is the final show of season 1. I think next week we'll start season 2, and we'll see what happens a year from now. But I was curious, is there anything that comes to mind immediately? If not, we can just move on. But if there's any show or anything that we've done in the last year that stands out more than anything else, just to kind of a little year in review. And I know we didn't talk about this pre-show. I just thought of it kind of on the spot. So
you put me on the spot here a little bit. I'm going to say I think our off-season NFL coverage with like there was like a stretch of shows. I want to say in probably June, April of last year, something like it was before the bubble or right during the bubble, where we were basically predicting all the division winners and then naming top 10 wide receivers and running backs. I'm just thinking about how basically we were 50-50 on everything there. Because I feel like if we went back to listen to those shows right now and compared it to actually what happened, I felt like right at home with the other sports broadcasters in the world who get it about half right. So we were right there.
Yeah, I mean that puts us on par with everybody else. So I think in terms of last year, actually discussing the Last Dance Jordan documentary, I've never had so much fun talking about essentially a television show before, because I think just the nostalgia of it and reliving kind of our childhood and going through all that and just little things that it was. I genuinely look forward week to week watching those shows and just talking about them because we lived it, so. That, and then honorable mention might be recency bias, but I think what we're doing right now with the our March Madness breakfast cereal bracket is something that I just cherish. So,
well, the thing is, we've had that brewing. I'm not sure if we mentioned this or not, but we've had that brewing for, I don't know, like was that 15 years now? Like it's something around there. Like we did it at our college radio show, The Stress Factor. Years and years ago, and we've been wanting to have a way or a venue or a chance to bring it back. And the thing is that now that we've brought it back, and everyone's been showing so much support, we've got a lot more planned, a lot more things in store. So I'm very excited for where this can go in the future.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk a little more about that maybe later on in the show in terms of how we're going to move forward with that. But that's it. So I just wanted to say happy anniversary to us.
Yep.
It's our 1-year anniversary and hopefully many more to come. So season 2 starts next week. Very exciting. But before that, we have to talk this week in sports. And right off the bat, we have it feels like every week we record the show, we always have some late breaking news. So the timing of news and our show seems to work out pretty well. Julian Edelman has officially retired from the NFL. He posted on social media, said, quote, "It was a hard decision, but the right decision for me and my family. And I'm honored and so proud to be retiring a Patriot. It's been the best 12 years of my life." And this on the heels of, I guess, his knee injury that he suffered last year is not healing as well as expected. And he's going to turn 35 next month. So, he tweeted Foxborough forever. And I don't know. What's your initial? If I say Julian Edelman, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Just a really tough, gritty guy, a good, sometimes great player who will be remembered for performing well in championship situations. I feel like his career ended quickly. I didn't realize he was 34 until I looked it up.
2009, he came in the league.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, maybe because the first few years of his career, he wasn't like a huge, he wasn't performing at the level we're used to now.
Yep.
Not quite Hall of Fame worthy, in my opinion, just looking at the numbers. One of the tests I do with a Hall of Fame player is when I hear their name, does it like automatically yes, right? Once I get there, I was like, okay, well now let me look at the numbers and see if it backs up. And it wasn't an automatic yes. He was kind of like, I'm not sure. And the one thing that stood out to me though, and I thought about you, because I wanted to see how much money he had earned in his career. Because I wasn't sure like where he ranked, right? And that there were only 2 seasons where he earned more than $7 million in any single year, and he averaged under $4 million per season for his career.
Huh?
And then I realized, oh, well, he played for the Patriots. You have to trade money for championships when you play for New England.
And he was
Cole Beasley money.
He was a 7th round draft pick.
That's
too.
True.
So he started off kind of behind the 8 ball.
That's a good point. I mean, it's like I was like, wow, like Cole Beasley's on track to make more than him.
Yeah, I mean it's also kind of the time. It's also 10 years later.
Yeah.
So the money has skyrocketed across the board with that, but
not that he's hurt. He earned $43 million in his career. I'm sure
he's not starting.
He was smart with his money. He didn't really get the endorsement deals that you would normally expect. He didn't have that endorsement type of face, though. Unfortunately, no offense to him, he just didn't have that look.
He, I personally, I think Julian Edelman is absolutely a Hall of Famer. I don't think there's even a question, and it's because it's, and I argue this with some other guys too, where it's the Hall of Fame, it's not the Hall of Stats, and I think that those things, sometimes one more than the other. I mean, Joe Namath is in the Hall of Fame because he made the greatest prediction in sports history and followed up and did it. He threw more interceptions than touchdowns. He's not stat-wise, he's not a good quarterback from a prototypical standpoint, but it's not just about stats. Julian Edelman has 2. He has 2 of the greatest catches in Super Bowl history. And he's been an MVP in the Super Bowl. I mean, I think he's trails only, I believe, Jerry Rice in terms of playoff receptions and reception yards. I mean, that's playing big in the biggest spotlights. While whether regular season isn't maybe his strong suit, it doesn't matter. He's showing up when it matters the most, and to me, that's Hall of Fame for sure.
No, I don't. The Hall of Fame to me is your playoff production is a part of it, but I'm looking at a guy like Torrey Holt right now who's not in the Hall of Fame, right? And Julian Edelman has 3 seasons with 1,000 or more yards. Torrey Holt had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 consecutive seasons with 1,000 or more yards during a time where was not quite as friendly for quarterbacks. You've got to put up the regular season numbers too. Like you can't just be like, well, I was okay and average during the regular season, but I turned it on in the playoffs, so that makes me a Super Bowl contender. A Hall of Famer. It's got to be the complete package. You've got to have the numbers, it actually doesn't even have to be complete package. To me, you perform well in the postseason to win Super Bowls. You perform well in the regular season to get into the Hall of Fame.
Well, I mean, in NFL history, he's got 118 postseason receptions, and he only trails Jerry Rice, who has 151, which is just crazy.
Well, that just means that his team was good enough to make the playoffs over and over again.
But he also, in the Super Bowl against the Falcons, he had that catch he had. That alone was unbelievable. I mean, that basically helped them win. You could argue that won the Super Bowl for them. I mean, not literally.
So should David Tyree be in the Hall of Fame?
Well, David Tyree doesn't have. He has one catch he never caught a pass after that catch.
Should Robert Ory be in the Hall of Fame?
I think Robert Ory should be in the Hall of Fame. Actually,
I don't think he should be in the Hall of Fame.
I know he averaged like 4 more points a game than I did, but he's hit some of the biggest shots. Again, it's the Hall of Fame. We're talking because we know Robert Ory. You can think of Robert Ory. Like he's famous for a reason. He made an impression.
I guess that's a very loose. To me, it's about statistical excellence. Statistical excellence. Yes, and there's rooms in the Hall of Fame.
Vinny Testaverde doesn't belong in the NFL Hall of Fame.
He's not statistically excellent.
He is like one of the biggest completion yards in NFL history. He's completed more yards. I think he's at least top 10.
I'm going to look up passing yard leading right now. But like Vinny Testaverde also threw like 40 interceptions in his second year. Like he's a compiler. He's a
compiler, so his stats are.
I'm not saying that compilers belong in the Hall of Fame. I'm saying that people with elite numbers. Vinny Testaverde is 15th on the all-time passing yards list. That's it's okay. I mean, Joe Flacco's 19th. So I mean, it's okay. I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's just not a Hall of Famer. If I will say this, if Julian Edelman, let's say Julian Edelman had, because he really only had 3 strong seasons. If you look at Julian Edelman's numbers, I don't want to pick the guy apart.
It's not, and I agree with you. I don't think that he, if you're just comparing stats for stats versus Hall of Famer, I mean, other than maybe comparing him to Lynn Swann, 40 years ago, his stats aren't going to be impressive at all. That's just not it. Calvin Johnson just was a first ballot Hall of Famer. Calvin Johnson's numbers destroy Julian Edelman.
Yeah.
But Calvin Johnson never even sniffed a title game.
Calvin Johnson didn't have Tom Brady and Bill Belichick on his side either.
No, but you could say the same thing. Okay, well, Jerry Rice had Joe Montana and Steve Young and
then Rick Shannon, and he still managed to produce at a high level. It's not like the numbers that Julian Edelman have are barely good in the regular season. Jerry Rice had all-time great numbers in the regular season and then had postseason success. Yeah. So
I mean, obviously Julian Edelman doesn't. He's not Jerry Rice. I'm just saying for the sake. I mean, you can't hold it against him that he had good teammates. I mean, that's.
You can hold it against him that he didn't have great numbers.
In a way, yes. To some extent, yes. I think that the fact that Wes Welker was there and had these phenomenal. I mean, he's in first place for all-time Patriots receptions. Julian Edelman is number 2, and I think Wes Welker. We saw Julian Edelman and we just kind of put him into the Wes Welker role, and we're like, yeah, that's just Wes Welker 2.0, instead of seeing him for what he was and being, giving him. I feel like he got shortchanged a little bit because we had seen, a smallish white slot receiver who could catch a lot of balls.
But Wes Welker had way better seasons than Julian Edelman. It's not close.
But not in the postseason.
Okay, fine. Not in the postseason.
Giant miss that he couldn't catch the pass from Tom Brady against the Giants.
You're comparing like 3-game, like in the postseason, it's a 3-game sample size, where the regular season's a 16-game sample size.
But when does it matter more than in the postseason? It doesn't matter. Week 4, you had 15 catches. Who cares if you win? If you catch the game-winning touchdown, Santonio Holmes caught the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Is he not a Hall of Famer?
Well, he's not, because he did it once and that was it. Julian Edelman's done it multiple times, and I don't know. I think
wouldn't argue if he was in the, like they say, hey, he's elected the Hall of Fame. I'm not gonna be like, gonna protest or something. I don't look at Julian Edelman as a Hall of Famer because I need to see regular season statistical dominance for you.
Would you rather have Julian Edelman's career or Calvin Johnson's career?
Probably Calvin Johnson's career.
Okay.
I mean, I just want to be remembered as one of the greatest receivers of all time. And then and Super Bowls aren't really connected to that the way they are to quarterbacks.
But that wouldn't bother you, just never having.
I would know that I had Matthew Stafford as my quarterback, and not. I mean, I don't want no disrespect to Matthew Stafford, but I would know that I played for the Lions, right? Like, what am I supposed to do? I didn't get drafted by the Patriots. If I got drafted by the Patriots, I'd have 4 Super Bowls too. And I think that's really the bottom line to me, right? You know. We could say Julian Edelman certainly had a part in it. He was a big part in it. But any receiver on those Patriots teams would have won Super Bowls.
Maybe. I don't know. This sounds like I may have to. This may turn into a news article on a website. I have a feeling this is going to. We can agree to disagree for now. We have a whole show to do. But to me, I think Julian Edelman is definitely a Hall of Famer, and you do not. So
you're saying he's first ballot too. You said that basically you don't need no doubt. So that makes me think you're saying first ballot as well.
I don't think. Well, I think he should definitely be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know if first ballot. If you're, I wish that the Hall of Fame had like levels. Where it's like here's the penthouse, here's the first floor, here's the nursery, here's the basement. Julian Edelman could go and you could sneak him in the basement, put him in there. I think that he would belong in there. Maybe the first floor. I mean, he does not belong in the same room with, Jerry Rice and Calvin Johnson and Terrell Owens and Larry Fitzgerald and Marvin Harrison. He's not that. That wasn't his contribution. His contribution wasn't being an elite, unstoppable wide receiver, wire to wire, weeks 1 through 16. He showed up
4 games a year. He was good.
And the 4 most important games of the year, yes, he was good. Yes, okay. It wasn't week 4, 6, 7, and 12. It was all in the playoffs. When do you need to play your best the most?
I think you need to get to the playoffs too, but I guess his teams are always good enough to get to the playoffs, even if he wasn't great.
He made the most of his opportunities when he got there. I mean,
that's. Right. We'll have to agree to disagree here.
All right, we'll move. Speaking of winning, just a couple other notes for the week. Baylor University, it's old news now, but just congratulations to them. They smoked Gonzaga and thwarted their undefeated season in just heartbreaking fashion. It was never even really close. So congrats to Baylor. They did well.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say beyond that. Also, congratulations to Mr. Matsuyama, who won the Masters tournament this last weekend. He finished with 10 under and he walked away with a lot of money. So
I wish I could offer you some analysis. I didn't watch one swing or at all. I'm not really a golf guy when Tiger's not playing, and obviously.
Yeah, it was funny to me because I did watch Bryson DeChambeau because he's supposed to be this kind of, a hard-hitting, his club speed is like 150 miles an hour plus. But I remember tuning in, and I was like, oh, I wonder, is Tiger play? Oh, that's right. Yeah, because I completely forgot about Tiger's accident. And I was so bummed out. It's just crazy. And it just made me realize, I'm like, wow, yeah, if Tiger's not in this, I really just don't care. Like, I'm sure Jordan Spieth's a wonderful player. I'm sure Xander Schauffele is fantastic. PJ Zing or whatever his name is. I can't even think of his name, but it's...
You talking about Vijay Singh?
Vijay Singh, yeah.
Oh wow, I think he retired. I'm not sure if he's even playing anymore.
But I know I heard his name over the weekend. Maybe it was for.
Oh, maybe.
It's golf. You could play till you're 50, But yeah, it's just no Tiger. It's just the electric, and it just made me realize, Tiger. What Tiger did in golf is just, I somehow think that it's actually underappreciated. I mean, if you think about it. Tiger Woods had his own brand of Gatorade. Tiger Woods, a professional golfer, had his own Gatorade at one point. That's crazy. That's Michael Jordan status playing golf.
Yeah, I don't know how it can ever be replicated. Honestly, I'm not sure that it can ever be replicated because it's hard to really put your finger on why he was as big as he was in
Because he
golf.
was so dominant. I mean, it was such an incredible show of just dominance and force that he was like Mike Tyson, early Mike Tyson of golf, where he came in and
Yeah,
it's just like it's not like if he's gonna win, it's like how many is he gonna win by?
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the thing, Mike, and he's the Michael Jordan of golf, and you wonder who's gonna be the LeBron James of golf. Is there ever gonna be somebody like that? Because it's not any of these other guys, I'll tell you that much.
Definitely not.
And so I don't know. But Tiger, I feel like Tiger did what Mike did, where he inspired a lot of people, and he's been inspiring people. But so far, no one's been able to come close to living up to his level of play. And the ratings prove it. I mean, it's not good. But yeah. So congratulations to what's Matsuyama is his name?
Mm-hmm.
I guess he did well. So hopefully, I hope I do hope Tiger comes back. I really would like to see him win. I don't know that he's ever going to be able to play golf again. And there was some reports over the weekend about his accident. He was speeding. I think he was doing an excess of like 85 miles an hour, which, I mean, who knows? It's tough to speculate. I mean, obviously he was speeding for a reason, or maybe just for fun, but no information on whether or not he was under the influence of anything, or they did it. I don't even think they took a blood test because there's no one else involved in the accident. So I hope that he does come back. I really do. It'd be nice to see him play again, but who knows if he'll ever even come close to what he was. That being said, we can touch on this is a sort of a Tiger-esque drama that's been going on after with all his Elin and all his little mistresses, and I think the Perkins waitress was the one that always made me laugh. But Deshaun Watson, less funny this time because these women involved with Deshaun Watson seem to not have been voluntarily involved in this. And we're not, there's nothing to say. I mean, the court of public opinion, I think, is starting to shift a little bit because it's up to, I think, 22 people now that are involved in this issue with Deshaun Watson. And 2 people have actually put their names to it, which, obviously gives a little more credence to their testimonials. And I don't know. I mean, Deshaun Watson might not play football, not only next year, he might not play football again.
Yeah, I floated the idea of not ever playing again last week, and now the more I'm thinking about it, I almost now don't even think it's possible for him to play this season. It does seem like September is far away, but it's really not that far away. And no. The draft is this month, like a couple weeks. Yep. Then you move into all the off-season programs and whatever OTAs and all the other different things. Mini camps, all that stuff. The Texans are going to have to move forward, and this is just terrible. There's no way all of this is going to be settled by the time it needs to be settled. This is terrible for Deshaun Watson, terrible for the Texans, terrible for the NFL. I think we were talking about this on the phone. It's definitely worse for Watson because his whole career might be over, and everything, like his endorsements, like everything, it's just going to be everyone basically abandons him. And if he's guilty, that's what he deserves. But the Texans, I mean, they did put the money in, but they'll survive. There will be more seasons, and there will be other quarterbacks, and they'll be able to move on from this eventually. But I don't know that Watson will ever be able to move on from this. Yeah,
I mean, it is a very Tiger-esque thing because that's what happened with Tiger. The sponsors started checking out, and Nike pulled. Or they suspended their relationship with Watson. I think Beats by Dre did the same thing. So, that's sort of the domino effect. And, hopefully some kind of conclusion comes to this. I mean, it's a bad situation all around. I think the best thing for Deshaun Watson to do is just make this go away. Whether he's guilty or not, just it needs to stop being talked about and just maybe put it behind you, because otherwise, like you said, he might not. His career might be over before it's barely even started. Yeah. And, it does hurt the Texans, I think, because I do think that before this came out, I mean, there were the rumors of what Deshaun Watson could have been traded for sounded like it could have been the biggest trade since Herschel Walker. I mean, it was just crazy, crazy amounts of first-round picks and all kinds of things that people were rumored to be putting together. The Panthers were one. I think the Dolphins were looking at them. The Jets were trying. But the Texans now, if they weren't in a rebuild before, they're certainly in a rebuild now. And they were 4-12 last year, which leads me into our next little bit here. This is sort of it'll be a reoccurring thing we'll do every so often. We can do it before the draft and after the draft. It's called rebuild or reload. And these are phrases that they've caught on in the modern lexicon of sports broadcasting. So I wanted to go through this really quick. The AFC, let's do the AFC edition. And I'm going to go through team by team, conference by conference. And real quick, Jose, I want you to tell me whether this team is rebuilding or should be rebuilding or should be reloading.
Okay.
Come the 2021 draft and the 2021 season.
I'm ready.
All right. So let's start. We'll start in that division. The AFC South, Tennessee Titans. They were 11-5 last year.
I think this is a rebuild. I know it sounds crazy, but
really?
But I just feel like we've seen the best from this team already. Tannehill's fine. Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown are great. Unless they can land some defensive superstars in the upcoming draft, I just don't see this team getting much further. And if the goal is to win the Super Bowl or not, right? I don't see a path for the Titans. And that's why I'm like, maybe it's time to rebuild. There are teams, you could trade Tannehill to the Broncos and probably get a decent, decent draft picks and just kind of stick with Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown and maybe get yourself a rookie quarterback on the rookie deal. And I guess that's, I don't know if that's rebuilding or reloading, but
I would say reload. I think they're pretty close to being. I still think that they can step it up another notch. I mean, they obviously were sort of a Cinderella team two playoffs ago, but they have arguably the best running back in the league. They have a competent mobile quarterback, and they have a decent receiving core. A.J. Brown is going to he's taken another step forward, and I think you're right. I think they have to focus on defense and maybe another playmaker on offense. But I think they're way closer to reload than rebuild. The Indianapolis Colts were 11-5 last year with Phillip Rivers. Obviously, they got Carson Wentz.
I also see a rebuild here.
What?
I know we saw them have some success. This is very, very binary for me. Just like we were talking about, this is very binary for me. Do I think you can win the Super Bowl in the next 2 years, or do I not think you can win the Super Bowl in the next 2 years? And I don't think the Colts can win the Super Bowl in the next 2 years, so that makes it a rebuild for me. I think it was a mistake to trade for Carson Wentz, and I think they would have been better off keeping their draft capital, keeping their money, and drafting a player, or drafting a quarterback, and waiting a couple of years. This team is young enough where it can wait a couple of years.
I'm going to say I'm going to go reload here too. I think that they did very well. I think the Colts should have beaten the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs last year with Phillip Rivers, and now they have a far more mobile, far more. At this level, I think overall Phillip Rivers is probably a better quarterback than Carson Wentz when it's all said and done. But in terms of Phillip Rivers last year to Carson Wentz this year, Carson Wentz is definitely an upgrade. And that receiver, they kept T.Y. Hilton. Michael Pittman is another year in. They have the best, offensive lineman in Quentin Nelson, maybe in the league. And it's a team that's, I mean, they're ready. Frank Reich is the offensive coordinator who has dealt with Carson Wentz, and I think after this season, it'll be clear whether or not they need to rebuild. I think they need to give it one more full swing, all in.
I can see what you're saying. I just want to say that, like, Carson Wentz last year was not better than Phillip Rivers last year, and we don't know
last year. No,
but we don't know. But what I'm saying is that's the last thing. That's the last we've seen of Carson Wentz, and we don't know if it was the Eagles or if it was Carson Wentz. If it was the Eagles, then I guess Jalen Hurts is in a world of trouble this season, and if it was Carson Wentz, then I don't think it's an upgrade.
All right. The Houston Texans.
Rebuild, obviously. This is unfortunate. They don't have really many
Yeah.
things to rebuild with.
Well, yeah, they have very little. Jacksonville Jaguars.
It's hard to say because they're in the middle of a rebuild, so I guess they keep rebuilding.
This is the ultimate rebuild year.
Yeah.
Urban Meyer, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, they're that's the ultimate rebuild.
Yeah.
All right, AFC East, Buffalo Bills.
Well, that's reload. I think they're right there. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Tre'Davious Wright. I never thought I'd include Cole Beasley in a discussion like this, but he's been a good player. I think they're a couple of pieces away. Maybe one piece on defense, the linebacker position somewhere, or just in the front seven, and obviously in the running game, they need a huge upgrade.
Yeah, and Emmanuel Sanders is a nice compliment.
Yep.
To Stephon Diggs for sure, and that combination, that Diggs to Josh Allen, I think that's a great. The chemistry they have is unbelievable. But I do think that they're one good running back away from really making some noise. And they were 13-3, so it's hard to really do much better than that. But the running game was obviously their Achilles heel last year.
I mean, one thing I'll just add, I think that this is an important draft for them because Josh Allen's about to get paid like crazy. And that means you have to hit on or a good amount of your draft picks this year.
This one is tough. This might be the hardest one we do in the AFC. The Miami Dolphins. They were 10-6 last year. Obviously, Tua Fitz was there.
Yeah, I think this is a reload. I mean, they're still young. It's hard to say blow it up right now. I don't know if this team has really peaked. We didn't really see the best from Tua last year. I don't think we gave him. He got a fair. We didn't get a good enough look at him. This is also a must-hit draft class for them. They also have a lot of draft picks in upcoming couple of years. So they're in a position to really upgrade this team with some good picks. So I think it's a reload. Just continue doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I put them in the rebuild stage. I think this is one of the final steps of the rebuild. But the Tua thing bothers me. I mean, watching him, I don't know what Brian Flores was doing. It was like Fitz is in once, and then Tua's in, and then Fitz is back, and then Tua's out, and then Tua's in. And just the games that I saw him play, meaning Tua,
yeah,
I was not impressed. And I understand he's a rookie. He's only, he was out in almost an entire year with the dislocated hip. But I don't know. I'm not sold on him. And I think that they're still in the rebuild phase. I think they're towards the end of it.
Okay.
But we'll see. Jets. I mean,
yeah,
Jets are perpetual rebuild. I mean,
they've been rebuilding since 2010, their last playoff appearance. So,
agreed. AFC North, Pittsburgh Steelers. That's a good one too.
You skipped the Patriots in this one though.
Oh, I did. You're right. East. I did. Sorry.
All right, I'm gonna go rebuild.
I was too excited to make fun of the Jets.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go rebuild. They just don't have much going on out there outside of Stephon Gilmore. So I'm not sure if you can really build around a corner. So this is a rebuild.
I agree. All right. Now the AFC North. Pittsburgh Steelers.
This is a really tough one. I think you've got to go reload here because, as much as we want to make fun of Ben Roethlisberger, you're not really finding someone better than him year one right now. So I think you have to reload. We've seen worse quarterbacks than Big Ben win a Super Bowl. It seemed like they kind of hit a wall as a team last year. Maybe it had to do with their issues with COVID. I think if they can upgrade their run game, take a little pressure off of Ben Roethlisberger, they could have a chance to go a little bit further next year.
Yeah, it's hard to say a team that started off 11-0 needs to rebuild. I think that this is a big reload. I think it's a full reload because they have a potentially great wide receiving core. And they have some real star players on defense, but it is going to come down to Ben, and it's going to come down. They need a running game. It's a lot like Buffalo, where it's just their defense is solid, their receivers can be great, but they are missing a very key component, especially for a team like the Steelers, who was basically prided themselves on running the ball and defense over the course of their history. But I'm gonna go reload, but it's a short leash,
and it's going to be a difficult reload too. It's not going to be easy. It's not one player here or there.
And it's not an easy division with the Baltimore Ravens, our next team.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to say reload here. Lamar Jackson didn't forget how to play football. The Ravens just need to evolve offensively. They need to prioritize a number one receiver at the top of this draft. I think they're a good enough team to continue to improve.
I agree. I got nothing to add. They need a receiver, and they just need more weapons on offense for.
Yep. I need more creativity, too. Stop being so predictable.
Yeah, and it can't just be Lamar Jackson make one read and then take off.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
We watched Michael Vick try that. It doesn't work.
We also watched Colin Kaepernick. Yeah.
And we watched RG3 try that and then get destroyed, and his career was never the same. All right. Cleveland Browns.
This is also a reload to me.
I agree.
You have 1 year before you either have to pay Baker Mayfield or replace him. Time to go all in. This is another must-hit draft class for me. When you have a quarterback who's about to get paid, you have to hit on the draft class that year.
Well, about to get paid or about to be released. I mean, that's either way.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Either way, you're resetting on some level. So yeah, I agree. It's the last dance for them is it's a reload. Cincinnati Bengals.
Similar to the Jaguars, they're in the middle of a rebuild, so I guess it just keeps on going. Tough division though. It's hard to see their path to the top right now.
All right, AFC West, Kansas City Chiefs.
This is an easy reload. They just need to be careful because if they whiff in this year's draft, they're going to find themselves in a tough position to plug holes on that team.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I think that's an easy one. Las Vegas Raiders.
Blow it up. This is such a reload. Blow it up immediately.
Well, it feels like John Gruden has been doing that this whole offseason. He's just been jettisoning offensive linemen left and right. They signed who's the running back from Arizona?
Kenyon Drake they signed.
Drake, yeah.
They need to trade him right now. Trade Derek Carr. I mean, honestly, like I don't know what the strategy is to reload or to rebuild for them, but there are a lot of teams in the NFL right now that would trade for Derek Carr. That probably would be an upgrade for them. If I'm the Raiders, I think if you're the Broncos, isn't that an upgrade for you to get Derek Carr over
Drew Lock?
The Bears, is that not an upgrade over Andy Dalton?
It is, but at what cost? I think is the problem. And the Raiders, I feel like Derek Carr. I feel like Derek Carr is in that same. He's neck and neck with like Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins. It's like they're good. They're good, but they need everything to be perfect around them to really shine. And I think that it's a. I mean, they were 8-8. I mean, that's the epitome of mediocrity. I mean, it feels like exactly where they are across in all things. And their defense was horrendous last year. And I agree. I think they have to just get a quarterback on a rookie deal, start from scratch. Gruden's on a 10-year contract. He's got time. He's not going anywhere. So just start over and do it right.
Yeah.
Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, I think this is a reload. I know that they were 7-9 last year. Yep. To me, though, I was really impressed with what I saw last year. If you actually watch the games and look at the scores and stats and not just look at the standings, you see the Chargers were basically in one-score games throughout the year and just kind of kept coming up short. They were also dealing with injuries on defense last year as well. This team to me has the potential to make a Miami Dolphins type turnaround, or even the year before that, the 49ers type turnaround, where you go from being mediocre to from a below average to mediocre team to going to be a Super Bowl contender. Yeah,
I think with, Justin Herbert is exceptional. And this team, like you said, I mean, they could have very easily been a 12-5 team with no problem. They just kind of were unlucky. They were snake bitten, which the Chargers usually to injuries, but this last season seemed like it was just losing. I think they're a couple pieces away, but they're not far. So reload. And finally, the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, it feels like the Denver Broncos are just waiting for a quarterback. It's hard to say rebuild. You've got Melvin Gordon, you've got Noah Fant, you've got Courtland Sutton, you've got Jerry Jeudy. They've got a decent defense and a decent offensive players. They just don't have a quarterback, but it's hard to get a quarterback without rebuilding. So I'm just going to say rebuild unless they're going to trade for someone.
I think it has to be rebuild. I mean, they don't have, and they haven't had the most important piece of the team. It's pretty much since the guy who's up in the press box as general manager has been there. Aside from maybe Peyton Manning, I guess. But
yeah. I mean, but the thing is, it's just tough. They're going to have to trade for someone. I don't know how you get a better quarterback. What do you do? Because if you could do it, every team would be doing it.
But at some point, I mean, even the Browns eventually got a quarterback that was good, if not great.
It's been like 30 years, but yeah.
Well, I mean, the Broncos, how long? It's been, I guess, Peyton left in 15? So it's been, it took them, it's been 6 years, so.
Yeah, give them 4 more years. We'll see.
Yeah. All right, so that's going to do it. That is our first rebuild or reload segment. We'll probably do the NFC edition next week, and then we can try again after the draft and see how we feel, if anything has changed. But we're going to take a break, We're going to come back. We have to touch on our breakfast cereal bracket. It's the final four. I'm excited to go over the fan vote and our votes and see who's moving on to the championship round. But coming up next, NBA, all NBA, top to bottom. Kind of get you all caught up with everything that's been going on. Our highlight, our low light, and our website spotlight of the week also has to do with the NBA. So stick around. We're going to come right back. This is the Benchwamerz Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwamerz Podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwamerz Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're sick with COVID-19 or think you might have it, take steps to help protect other people from getting sick. Stay home except to get medical care. Call the doctor before visiting. Separate yourself from others who live with you. Wear a cloth face covering to protect others. Cover your coughs and sneezes with a tissue and clean your hands right away. Avoid sharing items with other people in your home. This includes things like towels and bedding. Be sure dishes are washed in hot water or the dishwasher before anyone else uses them. Stay aware of how you feel. If you start to have difficulty breathing or if you're worried about your health, call your doctor. For more tips, visit cdc.gov.
Welcome back to the Benchwamerz Podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I am still Lou Ruggieri. That is still Jose Ortiz, and this is still the Benchwamerz Podcast. Appreciate you taking some time to spend it with us. Show has been moving right along. We are knee-deep in week number 50. This is the last show of our first season of the Benchwamerz Podcast. Season 2 to start next week. We're very excited for that. Go back and listen to all previous 49 episodes on either iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get podcasts. If you're listening, you know where to get it. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at the Benchwamerz Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or you can check out thebenchwarmers.com, thebenchwarmerspodcast.com. Is it thebenchwarmers.com? Jose?
It's thebenchwarmers.com. Thebenchwarmers.com.
Okay. Got it. Benchwarmers with a Z for marketing purposes. Yep. Thank you. So speaking of the website, we're going to talk a little about that. It's the NBA, around the NBA, I guess, the NBA catch-up, we could say. I don't know what to call it. It's just kind of getting you caught up because the NBA is a little hard to follow sometimes. It's all over the place. The scheduling is kind of erratic, it seems like, and it's tough to keep tabs on what everything is doing. So we'll give you some highlights and kind of some commentary on what's been happening thus far. We have a highlight and low light of the week. But first, the website spotlight on the aforementioned thebenchwarmers.com. Jose, you added an article this last week that has to do with the NBA, actually.
Yeah, it's something actually I think you and I have touched on it a few times. It's something that's bothered me, not bothered me, it's something I've thought about for a while. But you know, a lot of people are not happy with the NBA super team era, and I have a column I'm calling the fans and the media, people like us are to blame for the NBA super team era. And you might say, well, why? Why are we to blame for teams joining forces?
Why are we to blame?
It's because at some point along the line, we started invalidating players' careers with if you didn't win a championship, then you're just not that good. Oh, well, only the greats win championships. When in reality, yes, it is helpful to be great to win a championship, but the reality is most NBA championship teams have at least 2 Hall of Famers, if not 3 Hall of Famers. And what players like LeBron James and Kevin Durant and James Harden and others, I guess you can go back to Clyde Drexler as well, have done is instead of waiting for their front offices Carl Malone, instead of waiting for their front offices to try and figure it out and put a great team around them or put a championship team around them, they're taking matters into their own hands. They're taking their legacies into their own hands. And they're saying, you know what? I'm going to join the Miami Heat and make a super team. I'm not going to wait for the Cleveland Cavaliers to draft a player who's better than Mo Williams to pair with me. I'm not going to wait for Russell Westbrook to learn how to play basketball in a disciplined way for me to win a championship. I'm going to go join a team that's already championship ready. I'm going to join another team, and in some cases take less, which is what we say that we want them to do, right? Take less so you can put yourself in position to win. And I get frustrated when people lash out at these players for taking their careers into their own hands and taking their legacies into their own hands when we're not going to give Giannis a pass if he can't get through the Nets, right? If the Nets end up just winning the next 3 years, are we going to give Giannis a pass? No. Are we giving Damian Lillard a pass because he played in the same conference with the Oklahoma City Thunder early, and then with the Golden State Warriors, and now with the Lakers, all these super teams, Clippers as well, just forming around him? Is Damian Lillard getting a pass if he doesn't win a championship? No. So
it is kind of interesting in that it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because if Giannis doesn't win, we're gonna rag on him and say, well, he couldn't win. But if Giannis and Damian Lillard combine forces, then we're gonna say, well, you were soft because you had to team up to win.
But that's the thing. Having a great team has always been the path to winning a championship, and that's what people are missing. Having a great team has always been the path to winning a championship. It's just that not everyone can be Kobe and be traded on draft night to Shaquille O'Neal in his prime. Not everyone can be Magic Johnson and be drafted by a team that already had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
And James Worthy.
James Worthy came afterwards. But
That's right.
But still, it's fine. You know what I'm saying, though? Like, that's my point. Like, some players, Paul Pierce was on a team. His front office said, we want to win a championship. Let's go trade for Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen. That's what you need your front office to do to put you in position to win. And if they're not going to do that, you're not going to win, no matter how good you are.
Yeah, I think, and it's a great article, and I think that there's a lot of thought-provoking points there. And I not to get too far down the rabbit hole, but I feel like there is a lot of nuance to how we feel about these things, because nobody really mentions the Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce Celtics. And I think it's because Kevin Garnett tried to do it the right way in Minnesota and just floundered. I mean, he was a great player. He had unbelievable stats, but they barely sniffed the playoffs. And I think after so long, even the fans of his were kind of like, all right, man. Like, it's the same way I look at like Larry Fitzgerald before Kyler Murray got there. I feel like Larry Fitzgerald could be like, look, dude, I'm going to go play for the Patriots. Like, I want to know what it's like to stand on that podium and hold that trophy. And I don't think anybody would have given him any flack about it and just been like, yeah, man, you've suffered enough. Go get it.
You're absolutely right. Not all franchises are created equal, and not all front offices are created equal. So, yeah, great point.
Yeah, and we'd all love to see it done the way that, Jordan and the Bulls did it with Jerry Krause. But that, those are very few and far between, especially in the era of the Supermax contract.
Yeah.
There's only so much money to go around, and
also
mediocre players are getting $40 million contracts.
It's true. And now there's super teams everywhere. So now that's the strategy, right? So now it's even harder to win if you don't have a super team, because other people are forming super teams.
Yeah, no, that's true. But yeah, it's a great article. So go to the benchwarmers.com, Benchwarmers with a Z, and check it out. You can see that and some other articles we have up there, and there's be many more to come. So check it out. But speaking of those super teams, moving on to around the NBA, the Lakers this week, they got a surprise win over the Nets, which I was shocked. I didn't think anybody could outscore the Nets, and they did, 126-101. And that's without AD and without LeBron. So surprising.
Yeah, they were also without why
Drummond.
I can't think of his name now. But anyway, they weren't at full strength, and it was a nice win for the Lakers. And yeah, the Nets were also not at full strength. It's worth noting that they were also not at full strength. But I think wins like this time, if the Lakers are able to hang on and make the playoffs, this is going to be very valuable.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if we get to see a matchup of this same two teams because of this game or this series. So there are a couple of injuries. Which of these is most impactful, do you think, to their respective team? James Wiseman with the Warriors injured his knee, probably out for the year. Clippers, Patrick Beverley broke his left hand, and the Heat, Victor Oladipo injured his knee in almost looked like a non-contact thing where he just kind of started limping out of nowhere. So
this is easy to me. It's Victor Oladipo.
I agree.
Yeah, especially because it's the same knee that he had the quad, the torn quads, or and he missed over a year in the NBA. And the sentence you don't want to hear is that they're gathering more information, which is just, it's not. They're like, oh, is he gonna play again this season? We're gathering more information. That is not the vote of confidence you want to hear. And without Oladipo, who was going to be an X factor for the Heat to try and make a deep run, I just don't see it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's spot on. The Mavericks, this is actually my highlight of the week. The Mavericks have snuck up to 7th in the West. They're in control of the Southwest Division, and they're looks like they're starting to come on a little bit, which, if you're going to do it, now's a good time to do it.
Yeah.
The Suns are at the top of the Pacific Division, which is a little surprising, but I guess the Suns, I don't know. Do we underrate the Suns or the Jazz more right now?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a thrown out of me. I think we underrate the Suns a little bit more. I think we can look at the Suns and say the only reason you're in first place is because the Lakers are without LeBron and AD.
Yeah,
right. I think we can say that. So,
and then finally, half a game separates the Hornets, Hawks, and Heat in the Southeast Division. Does that matter?
Well, I mean, I just want to quickly touch on the Mavericks. Just really quickly, the Mavericks. Kristaps Porzingis is so the Mavericks are 6-2 in their last 8 games, and during that stretch, Porzingis is averaging 22 points per game, 11.5 rebounds, and almost 2 block shots per game. This is the level that the Mavericks need. And when you were talking about earlier this season in the offseason where the Mavericks were going to be this, you thought they were going to be a pretty good team.
Yep.
It was contingent on Kristaps Porzingis playing at this level. So we already know what Luka can do. Let's see if Porzingis can keep it going. And as far as the Southeast Division, I guess it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, I don't think anyone in that division is going anywhere, especially if the Heat don't have Oladipo. But I'm just a little surprised that the Heat haven't pulled away in the division, honestly. It just feels like every time I'm expecting, okay, it's over. Jimmy Butler's back. This division is over. And I keep looking up, and it keeps being close. So I'm not sure. It's just this should be their division to lose. That's the only thing that seems weird to me.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, a big NBA fan, over the weekend, and he was asking, he's like, "Who can anybody beat the Nets in the East?" And the two teams I came up with, I think the Sixers, if they are on point, have a chance because of their coaching and because of their depth. But then also I said the Heat. I think the Heat. I mean, before the Oladipo injury, obviously, I thought that the Heat, if they're hitting on all cylinders, I think that they could match up really well with a team like the Nets.
Yeah, I have the same two. I could see the Bucks maybe too, just because in the right situation, we've seen Giannis kind of catch fire. He needs to take another step this postseason to show he's a great player. But yeah, I agree with your assessment for the most part.
I would have said the Boston Celtics before the year started, but obviously they win the Underachiever of the Year award so far. So I talked about my highlight of the week. My low light of the week, actually, and I will keep this quick, but Draymond Green was on Kevin Durant's podcast this week, and he said that young NBA players are, quote, soft as hell, and says they lack competitive spirit. This, to me, could not be more hypocritical, coming from someone who actively recruited one of the top 3 players in the league to come and win championships with. That, I know this kind of goes back to what you're talking about the our article online, but just saying that anybody else lacks competitive spirit, nothing says I lack competitive spirit like, hey, let's go recruit the guy who might beat us.
Yeah, let's go recruit the second best player in the game, maybe even the first best player in the game, maybe even the best player in the game, to join our team that was 73-9 a year ago. Yeah, no, it's
the lack of awareness that just threw. I was like, come on, dude, like you have to be aware of what you're saying right now.
I think one of the things I try to catch myself, I'm going to be 40 years old, as you know, and one of the things I like to catch myself in doing is talking badly about younger generations because it's just something that older people do.
Yeah, I mean, they are soft, but
yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. I think people from the 1980s, Rick Mahorn and Bill Laimbeer are looking at Draymond Green like, who are you calling soft, bro? You're soft too. Like, let's not act like Draymond Green is some sort of enforcer that would really be able to hang with the really tough of the tough in the NBA.
Yeah, I think just even watching Dennis Rodman play against Draymond Green would be hilarious because Rodman would
eat him alive.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't even be fair.
All right, so my highlight of the week, I'm just going to quickly go through 30 rebounds from Enes Kanter. And there's not a lot of Enes Kanter discussion on our show.
No, or any show for that matter.
But
maybe
listen,
Kanter has his own podcast and there's a lot of Kanter talk there. But
yes, but he set a Portland Trailblazers record in the win over the Pistons, 30 rebounds last week. I just thought it was an impressive stat line. Fourth player in the last 20 years to grab 30 or more rebounds in a single game. Do you think you could name any of the other three?
In the last 30 years?
20 years. Last 20 years.
20 years. Kevin Love.
Correct.
Kevin Love had a 30-30 game.
Yeah.
I remember. In the last...
I think two of them... Well, you already got one. I think one of them's other one's like relatively obvious or like a name that you would definitely guess. And then the other one is just... I don't know. You'd have to really be deep knowledge to know this one.
This is in the last 20 years.
The last 20 years, yep.
Shaquille O'Neal.
No. It is. Do you want one more guess, or shall I just tell you?
And one is, you said the other one I won't guess, or it's just like a random person.
I wouldn't say he's somewhat known, but one of them is a borderline Hall of Famer, and the other one's kind of like a borderline good player.
Jamal Mashburn.
Dwight Howard. That was the borderline Hall of Famer.
All right, that was close with Shaq. That's it.
And the other one, so Dwight Howard, Kevin Love, and Andrew Bynum.
Oh.
Andrew Bynum.
Oh, I do. Yes. Wow. I strangely do remember him doing that. That's right.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know how to describe Andrew Bynum. He was a guy who was good for 2 years. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a blip on the Lakers' radar. That's about it.
And low light of the week, this is more of a season long, but it's one of the Minnesota Timberwolves. 26 games out of first place, 14 wins, 40 losses. They have as many losses as the Utah Jazz have wins. And they have not won back-to-back games since December. Wow. So it's just, and I'm looking at their records over the past few years, and it's just been getting worse and worse and worse every year. So I'm not really sure what's happening in Minnesota. It might be time for a changing of the guards, but that's my low light of the week.
Yeah, and I mean, we talk about super teams and things like that. I mean, the problem with having these super teams is that means those talented players are not on several teams. Yep. Yeah, including the Timberwolves and the Kings and the Rockets now and the Pistons and it's a very uneven distribution of power, and I think that that's becoming more and more obvious as time goes on. Yeah, the Wolves, Timberwolves, that's rough. All right, let's take a break. By the way, I think Dwight Howard is a Hall of Famer for the record.
I think so too. I just wasn't sure if I could just say slam dunk, definite Hall of Famer.
I think after he helped win a championship last year with the Lakers, even though it's hard to say with Dwight Howard because he was on the Lakers initially and then he came back. So it's like it doesn't feel like he fully joined a team. I don't know. I feel like his pre-standing with the Lakers kind of offsets some of he just joined to win a championship. It's like, well, he was there already.
Yeah.
And
I don't think it was a gift wrap championship at all. Like, it wasn't like that's the championship team. Everyone was picking the Clippers. Yeah. So you got to remember that. And
he contributed too. I mean, he played a part. It wasn't like he was just sitting on a bench being a cheerleader.
Yep.
But yeah. All right. Let's take a quick break, and then we have to come back and round out this show. Usually we don't do 2 breaks in an hour, but this week is kind of a condensed show, even though it's not really condensed anymore. We have to just take a quick break. We'll come back, and we have to figure out the final 4 for our breakfast cereal bracket. And then we're going to figure out who's going on to the championship. And it's not going to take too long, but it's better to take a break, and we'll come back refreshed and ready because it just makes sense. So stick around. We'll be right back with our breakfast cereal bracket final 4 right after this on the Benchwamerz podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwamerz podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwamerz podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you think or know you had COVID-19, you can be around others after 10 days since symptoms first appeared, and after 24 hours with no fever without fever-reducing medication, and after other symptoms have improved. If you have tested positive for COVID-19 and you had no symptoms, you can be around others 10 days after you got tested for COVID-19. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus.
And now back to the Benchwarmers podcast with Lou and Jose.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwamerz podcast. This is our 50th week, the last show of season 1. I'm very happy it's our 1-year anniversary. Season 2 to begin next week. And I can't think of a more fitting way to end our first year than by going through our breakfast cereal bracket and getting to the championship round, the Final Four. I guess maybe it would have worked out a little better if we had the championship this week, but whatever, it is what it is. We can start off with a champion next week, so that sort of feels fitting in a weird way. You can go back and listen to the first couple parts of this show on iHeartRadio podcasting, Amazon Podcast, Spotify. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at the Benchwarmers Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or you can go to thebenchwarmers.com and see what we're about to talk about. It is the breakfast cereal bracket. You can follow along and see all of your favorites, where they succeeded, where they failed. You know, if you're rooting for a team or cereal that is bowed out, you can see why that happened. We have a pretty solid listener to the show. I was talking to him over the week, and he actually sent me a picture, which made me think about it. Maybe that if we ever do this again in the future, Jose, that votes for fans should be only if they actually have the cereal in their cabinet, because he sent me a picture. He was a big fan of Frosted Mini Wheats of all things, and was very upset that Frosted Mini Wheats took such an early exit in the Elite Eight, I believe. And I said, how far did you expect him to go, man? And he sent me like a picture of just a big bowl of cereal in the morning, and he's like, this is why I thought they were going to go on. And he was eating them, and he eats them like every day. So I was like, wow, that vote should have counted for more, I think. His vote
Well, people really are. It's a very like personal thing, you know. It's not objective. There were a couple people who seemed to really think that Frosted Mini Wheats should have beaten Lucky Charms. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but
maybe they're only eating one half of the Frosted Mini Wheats.
Yeah,
they didn't like.
That would have had to be a veto. Like if public
cut the roof of their mouth on one of those little hay squares, but. All right, so that being said, you can go to thebenchwarmers.com, and you can see we have right on the homepage, there's the breakfast cereal bracket for 2021, and see where we're at. We're at the Final Four, and I'll tell you, any of these matchups, you mix and match this anyway, and it could be the championship round. So I'm very excited to see how this goes and where this goes. So how it works, just to recap, Jose gets a vote, I get a vote. For obvious reasons, we host the show. And the listeners, we have you guys as a collective vote. So we took the percentage, obviously the majority vote, and that counts as a third vote. So this way there's no tiebreakers, because as similar and Jose and myself are, sometimes cereals are, again, like you said, a very personal thing. And we've had some very heated debates that I think would have ended in stalemates had we not had the fan vote to break that tie. So without further ado, Jose, the Final Four, if you please.
Alrighty, well, let's just go ahead and jump right into what I think was probably, let's let you decide here. Cinnamon Toast Crunch versus Cookie Crisp. To me, there was always Cinnamon Toast Crunch tournament to lose, and Cinnamon Toast Crunch took 89% of the vote on this one. This was the fan vote, and I mean, honestly, once we got to the Sweet 16, I had people telling me Cinnamon Toast Crunch is going to win this whole thing, because, that would be my, people were talking about running it back next year. My one caveat was like, we can't let Cinnamon Toast Crunch in this tournament again. Who's beating Cinnamon Toast Crunch? So yeah, Cinnamon Toast Crunch for the win.
Wow,
for me,
89%.
Yeah,
wow.
Not close.
See, my vote goes to Cookie Crisp actually.
Oh,
and
wow.
As good, I'm not upset by it. I think I'm happy to see Cinnamon Toast Crunch go on, because obviously with your vote and the fan vote, I'm outvoted. So it is what it is. That's the nature of the beast. Cookie Crisp to me is just I look at it this way. This is kind of how I deal with all of these So just to recap really quickly, Cinnamon Toast Crunch came in and just destroyed Life cereal in the first round. It embarrassed Apple Jacks in the second round, and then had I'd say a relatively cupcake for an Elite Eight matchup in Reese's Puffs. I mean, it's been a pretty easy cruise thus far to the final four.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cookie Crisp, on the other hand, had a barn burner in the very first round against Frosted Flakes. I mean, that could have went either way, I think.
Yep.
The next, the Elite Eight, Cookie Crisp topped Cocoa Pebbles, which I thought was a tough road right there. And then, somehow ousted Trix in the Elite Eight, and that's a hard. I mean, that's murderer's row right there of cereals for Cookie Crisp to
had the hardest road, definitely.
Yeah, and it's made it this far, and it gets my vote again. I think that Cookie Crisp, if there are two boxes in front of me, or if I have one box in a morning of each of these cereals, Cinnamon Toast Crunch would probably last till the next day. And that's the deciding factor. Cookie Crisp is not making it till next breakfast. So, but it is what it is. Cinnamon Toast Crunch moves on. Cookie Crisp, heartbreaker, but it's the way it goes. Cinnamon Toast Crunch to the championship round.
Okay. Now this next one was absolutely close, and I Honey Nut Cheerios versus Lucky Charms. I said that Honey Nut Cheerios was like the adult in the room. Right, when you look at Cookie Crisp and Cinnamon Toast Crunch and Lucky Charms, Honey Nut Cheerios is kind of like, I taste good, but you can feel okay eating me too. Yeah. And so it was really, really tough for me. I went with Lucky Charms, and it was really close. And I'm going to tell you, I was on the fence, and one of our listeners, or one of the people who voted on this on Facebook, basically said, Lucky Charms is Honey Nut Cheerios with marshmallows.
I did see that.
And that was like, yeah, that's true. Like, I'm getting Honey Nut Cheerios plus marshmallows. That's better than Honey Nut Cheerios. So I went with Lucky Charms. I don't want to give you the vote yet. I want you to tell me who you're going with. So
my vote actually is going to go to Honey Nut Cheerios.
Okay.
Because while I saw that comment and it feels almost true, Honey Nut Cheerios is different than Lucky Charms. Lucky Charms without marshmallows is just very bland and kind of, it's dry and almost tasteless. Honey Nut Cheerios does have honey. I mean, the honey is in the name. It's in the Cheerio. And I don't know. I feel like it's the adult in me a little bit because it's sweet but not too sweet, and it's something that I can eat, as a 15-year-old or as a 45-year-old and still kind of feel like I'm not being weird. So Honey Nut Cheerios would get my vote here. So that's where I'm going.
So I went Lucky Charms. You went Honey Nut Cheerios.
By the way, before you tell me the fan vote, just Honey Nut Cheerios, by the way, ousted Chex in the first round. Easy.
Yeah.
Beat Raisin Bran in the second round, which is
that's close.
That's a good matchup of two adult cereals.
Yep.
And then we had Cheerio and Cheerio Crime in the Elite Eight. Apple Cinnamon Cheerios, little brother got beat up by big brother Honey Nut Cheerios. Lucky Charms, you talked about Cinnamon Toast Crunch having an easy ride. I mean, Lucky Charms, my God.
Yeah.
Embarrassed Honey Bunches of Oats in the first round. Just mopped the floor with the aforementioned Frosted Mini Wheats. And then I did have a tough matchup. I thought Cocoa Puffs, was going to beat Lucky Charms in the Elite Eight. Obviously, I was wrong. And here we are. But yeah, that's the two ways that these two guys got here to this Final Four. And one easier than the other, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think it was weird. Lucky Charms had an early lead. Then Honey Nut Cheerios made just a remarkable comeback. And then one vote out on our Facebook page tipped the scales to Lucky Charms, which won 54% of the vote. One more vote.
Wow.
54%.
Oh, Honey Nut Cheerios in the heart. Both of the cereals I voted for. Oh man, this.
Yeah.
You know what though? It's fine. All four of these cereals made it here. They earned the right to be here, and we voted. You voted. Fans voted. I voted. I was wrong, but that's okay. It happens. Not very often, but it does happen. So, all right. Then we have, was it Cinnamon Toast Crunch versus Lucky
Charms in the finals.
In the final championship matchup for the 2021 breakfast cereal bracket on the Benchwamerz podcast. That is very exciting. I can't wait to put this up on Facebook and social media and see what kind of reaction we get, because I feel like there's going to be a little bit of an outrage that both of the, probably more so for Lucky Charms winning than Cinnamon Toast Crunch, but
yeah. There's some Honey Nut Cheerios truthers out there.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's stood the test of time. It's it's heart healthy, or so I'm told from the little bee. But yeah, I mean, maybe next year. Who knows?
Another phrase you'll never hear on another show: Honey Nut Cheerios truthers.
That's always groundbreaking new vernacular on the Benchwamerz podcast. You can always count on us for some strange phrasing, to say the least. So okay, I'm looking forward to this. We'll put that up. After the show. The show's gonna, I mean, by the time you're listening to this, that'll already be on the website or Facebook. So follow along, cast your vote, thebenchwarmers.com, Benchwarmers with a Z, or you can go to our Facebook page, the Benchwarmers podcast, on all things social media except Twitter, where we are at the BW Pod, and chime in. We'd love to hear your vote, and we're also kind of touching on some potential next bracket topics. So if you have suggestions for those, feel free to kind of hit those up on any of those aforementioned platforms. So yeah, that's going to do it, I think. So I'm looking forward to this championship round. Jose, happy anniversary.
Yeah, same to you.
We'll see you next week when it's season 2. So that's going to do it. For Jose Ortiz, I'm Lou Ruggieri, and we'll see you next season. Bye-bye.